Welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Please introduce yourself in the name of your business.
I'm David Kidd, president of the Kidd Group, and we're a general contractor.
Awesome. We so look forward to learning more about your business. But before that, we want to learn a little bit more about your story. And we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So let's jump into things and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, it's for me, it's been a pretty exciting one, and quite a few interesting events that have molded me to who I am. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, grew up there, was going to a junior college. My mother and stepfather took a job in Memphis, Tennessee. I was living at home, trying to go to school. And so I thought, well, if I don't go with them, I'll never finish. So I went down to Memphis with them, enrolled in Memphis State, which is now the University of Memphis. And but quickly ran out of money, and they weren't in a position to really help me and stuff. So I was an accounting major, and so I left, thought, well, I'll work a little bit and then go back to school. Took a job, got a job in the accounting department at the Hilton Airport in Memphis, which was just opening up, getting ready to open up, and did that. And after about a year and a half, during that process, I got several promotions, and I was to the point where I was right up underneath the food and beverage director. And so I thought, wow, I don't know if I need to go to school. And but one of the things that struck me after that was, yeah, I expected that. I hadn't really thought about it, but I expected that when, if you were successful in, your career, you had a good social life, you're making, decent money, and I'm 21 years old at the time, that would bring fulfillment. And it didn't bring anything, it was, it wasn't bad, but it just didn't bring that satisfaction and fulfillment. I thought, well, what, if that doesn't do it, what does? Where do you find fulfillment? So I started this journey that took me about a year, thinking about the purpose of life, and what can you do that will bring meaning and fulfillment and stuff, and just even thinking about evolution. I was unchurched, not religious in any way. I came to the realization there must be a creator by looking at evolution. Taking where, if we're at the top of the apex of the chain and things aren't looking very good, we're going to get cut off here pretty soon. If things are moving towards perfection, and followed it back, and that life came from non-life, and you just keep going back to the Big Bang. At some point, you got to say something, uncreated, created. And I thought, well, if there's a creator, and this is I've got to find out who it is. And I didn't think it was Christianity, because we live in a Christian society and stuff, and I didn't see anybody that really impressed me in that way. And so I started, that, well, it could be, maybe it's the Muslim faith, or Hindu, or something else. And during that time, I'd hired a guy to work for me that was different, was a Christian, and was different. And we started having conversations, and eventually I asked him to come over to my apartment, and we talked about it. And while we were there talking, he brought a guy with him, and they were talking to me, and then my roommate came in, they were talking to him. And while they were talking to him, this funny feeling just started welling up in my stomach, in the center of my chest, and it was growing. And I was sitting there thinking, man, if I did drugs, I think I'm having a flashback or something. And at the peak of it, I heard three words: I am He. And it was Jesus. And it just split me right down the middle. And so at that point, I'm thinking, wow, the creator of the universe has just busted up in my life. And so that changed me. So and everything was black and white about all the things I was doing wrong, getting drunk, just all the standard type stuff that you do when you don't have any guidance. And it changed my life. I left the Hilton Inn and ended up going into the ministry full time for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and realized I wasn't called to that. And when I got it, I said, "Well, God, what do you want me to do?" And in prayer, I felt like God told me start a roofing company. Now I have never been on a roof, and it's like, well, okay. I mean, you're the man. If you say that's it, that's what I need to do. So I called up a guy I knew that did that. He told me over the phone how to fix roofs, and I'm next day I'm out knocking on doors, and that uh, that business that I started in '83 um, prospered. It grew. And in '94, we moved to, ended up in Austin, Texas with this campus ministry. It was a campus ministry that I was involved with.
Mhm.
And at that time, they had a change and in the campus ministry itself. And so I thought, well, should I stay with this, campus ministry? I mean, I'm getting older anyway and stuff. And once again, I felt like God told me sell the business, move to Kansas City, where my wife's from. We were about to have our seventh child, and so I did that, sold the business, moved to Kansas City, started over again. And while I was up there, did go back to school, got an engineering degree, and toward the end of that, I couldn't go to school full time really, and engineering's pretty intensive, time consuming and stuff. So I ended up working for another roofing company, running their repair division, and did that until 2013 when they had a CEO that basically about run them bankrupt. It was a great company, but and so they had to cut a bunch of people. And since I had done such a great job with the with his repair division, they let me go because they figured, oh, he's a big salary. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity to come back to Austin, which we'd already wanted to do. When I came back, bought this construction company from an old neighbor of mine that wanted to retire, and which was a very successful business that had started in 1988, and that got me here and to where I'm at now.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, with your story, it's interesting because in the early years, like you said, you did not have any church, any type of religious guidance. At that time, was it where you were just downtrodden, you were feeling bad? What made you open up for the opportunity to even see religion at that particular time? Were you depressed? Were you down? What opened up that door for you in the beginning?
No, I think there's two ways that people get there, and hitting the bottom of the barrel. But in my case, it was success
Okay.
that didn't bring fulfillment, and it was kind of like, what am I gonna, you know, find a girl, get married, have kids, get up every morning, go to work, come home at the end of the day, and do it over and over again
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's got to be more to life than this, and so. Um, so that's what started the quest. And I mean, and I would go to parties, and ask people, hey, what are we here for? What's the purpose of life? And they say, hey, have another beer, and I was on board. I was fine with that. But
Yeah.
I was looking for the creator.
Yeah.
Once I realized there was a creator, it's kind of like, well, that only leaves. I mean, to me, the only logical response to that is if there's a creator, I'm the created,
Mm-hmm.
and fulfillment can't come any other way other than doing what you were created for. Um, so it was not the downtrodden story. It was the other end, and
Okay.
I think people come to God both ways.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. And as we talk about that, taking on the responsibility of living a straight and narrow life, brings all types of other things towards you. Tell us about how you've been able to navigate avoiding some of those things that you were doing in the past to stay on the correct path going forward. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you focus on it?
Well, we were strongly involved in church, and so the saying, uh, "Bad company corrupts good morals." So birds of a feather flock together. So it's important in life that the friends that you pick and the people that you run with are the type of people that are going to get you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that, have a support group around you that's friends that care about you and you care about, that helps keep you on the straight and narrow, whatever that is for you. And so that's probably been one of the biggest things that, in fact, one of the guys that was in the ministry full time with me, back in the 80s, is ended up here in Austin. He's my best friend. He's the pastor of a local church, and we've kept this relationship for 40 years.
Awesome. So you have immersed yourself with people who are like-minded and trying to get the same goals accomplished. That's helping you on that path. I want to take a step and talk a little bit about how once you found that peace and you know where you were going towards, I want to talk about the roofing company. And you said that one day you just say, you know what, I'm going to figure out how to be a roofer. Tell us a little bit about some of those experiences that you had in those 11 years that you had that company that you still carry to the day, helping you with your current construction company.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I just gotten out of the full-time ministry, and it was a campus ministry. So, if your church is nothing but college kids, for the most part, they don't have any money, and if passing the offering plate is how you get paid, it's a pretty skimpy lifestyle.
Hmm.
So it didn't take much to improve my financial situation,
I got you.
and so I started knocking on doors in a commercial area looking for work. I had no equipment, and at the time I was at Fayetteville, Arkansas, at the University of Arkansas. They sent me over there to help there, and fortunately, there it's a mountainous type terrain, kind of mountainous, and the first four jobs that I landed by knocking on doors, I go in a business casual like this and say, hey, you got any roof leaks, and trying to find an owner operator of the business. And the guy said, well, come to think of it, yes, we do. We got a couple here, and I'd say, well, listen, let me give you a price to fix them. And so, for the first four jobs, I was able to get on the roof without a ladder.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a ladder,
Hmm.
didn't have a truck. I'm in a car,
Hmm.
and so I go up there, climb up on the roof, and sweep the gravel around and figure out, see what I thought was the issue based on what my friend had told me, and went back down and gave him a price. He said, "That's great." I'd go out to my car, put on a pair of coveralls, get a bucket of tar, and get tools, climb up on that roof. And in fact, I remember the first time it happened, after the guy gave me the job, and he sees me coming back, the salesman coming back in, 2 minutes later in these coveralls.
Hmm.
His eyes got on his face. I've been scammed.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so the we'd actually I think I'd gotten like 8 jobs, and I made a bunch of money for me.
Hmm.
And I don't remember exactly how much it was at this point, but we went to a conference with the church group we were with, and I thought, if it rains before I get back, the sheriff might be there waiting for
Oh
me,
my goodness.
because I have no experience, and is what I did going to fix these things? I'm not really that certain,
Hmm.
and but I gave it my best shot. So I came back. The first rain, 80% of the leaks got fixed on the first time,
Hmm.
and that's unusual for experienced guys that do roofing repair work.
Hmm.
So, you know, the one of the things that happened on a couple of different occasions, I came down to my last penny while I was out knocking on doors,
Hmm.
and I mean, I just would get to the spot where, God, if you don't come through, this is what you told me to do. I'm doing it. If I perish doing it, that's how it goes. But I got a wife and a couple of kids, and in two specific times, I remember the very next door I knocked on, I got a job.
Hmm.
So, it's putting your trust in God is ultimately the answer, and doing what He tells you to do, and being open to do whatever it might be. You never thought I'd be a roofer or a roofing contractor. That thought never entered my mind, at any point until I felt God speaking to me.
Awesome. And talking about that trust, you did something that's a little unusual. I think you moved to Kansas, and then at the age of 50, you decided you're going to go back to school. Tell us a little bit about that trust level and that experience getting into school at 50.
Yeah, so my wife, she didn't finish her degree either. She was getting a degree in dietetics, and when we both got involved in campus ministry and got married, and so we have 7 kids, 6 girls, and all the rest are boys. And so she wanted to finish her degree, and but she kept getting pregnant, and it just wasn't working out. After the last one came, and we had moved to Kansas City, and they were all in school. Uh, she said, "Well, I think it's time to try." And so she hated chemistry, but that's kind of a big factor in dietetics. So I said, "Well, I love chemistry. I'll go to school and tutor you through chemistry." So we did that, and my number two daughter was studying mechanical engineering, and I'd looked at some of her textbooks and said, "You know what? I should have done that instead of accounting." And so at that point, I said, "You know what? I'm going to go back get my degree in engineering." And um, the next semester, I took Chem 2 with my wife, tutored her through that, and took calculus.
Mhm.
And we were going to up there in Kansas City, and on the Kansas side, there's a Johnson County Community College. At the time, it was ranked like number 3 in the nation for academics. So it was a lot of junior colleges really aren't that good, and the education is not the best. But this was a good school. And so I tried to take calculus, and they said, "No, you can't take calculus. You hadn't been to school in 30 years, and you just can't jump into calculus." I said, "I'll be just fine." Well, they wouldn't let me. So, but I knew the dean of the math department, went to church with him,
Mhm.
and so cornered him and said, "Hey, listen, if I fail at calculus, I'm not going to blame you guys. Just give me a waiver there and let me get in without taking whatever records you're saying." And he said, "Okay, let me take it." I passed the class, got a B in it, and from that point, taking those 2 classes, I started going to school full time. And as I finished the 2 years, uh, needed to go to a 4-year school. The University of Missouri has a campus there in Kansas City, and so I went and applied there. They accepted me, and the I was older than the head of the civil engineering department, and he said, "This will be interesting." So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it will. And but it was great. I loved it. Loved the schooling and stuff. And when during that time, I also ended up shutting down my company because I just couldn't do them both, and
Mhm.
went to work for another roofing contractor. Told him I'd run his repair division. When I got out of school, he'd have a engineer on staff that's running his repair division.
Yes, yes. Well, that's an interesting story as far as you making that decision to go to school at that age, a little bit unusual. But now you've gotten your degree, you're working with this company, and there's a lot of options that you can take on at that particular time. But you said you're going to take over that company that you were working with. Was there an event that happened that made you say, you know what, I'm going to burn the ship and purchase this construction company?
Yeah, so the situation with the roofing company was the owner had hired a couple of CEOs that did terrible jobs, and the third one I think it was that he hired almost ran him bankrupt, and so they had to cut everywhere they could, and so they cut me loose, and with that, it's kind of like, okay, we're in Kansas City. I always felt like I was going to come back to Austin, Texas, which where we're at now. And so I started interviewing with companies down here, yeah, roofing companies down here. And when the neighbor that I had lived next door to when I lived here the first time, when I started my roofing company before I moved to Kansas City, heard that I was coming back to town, said, "Hey, I want to retire." And so I had an opportunity. I can move back to Austin. He had a very successful general contracting company. I thought, man, opportunities like this, how often do they come around?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
so it's kind of like, yeah, I've got to latch on to this. And of course, I prayed about it. I felt like it was the move to make, and so we packed everything up and moved back and started it over for a third time.
Awesome, awesome. Now tell us all about your business. Tell us how you're helping people out here in the community in the Austin area.
Yeah, absolutely. So he did commercial tenant finish out. Some parts of the country they call it fit out. It's either in a brand new shell building that maybe a large general contractor has built, is unoccupied, and then as they lease it out, the architect draw up the plans, and general contractor comes in and does the interior finish work, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, flooring, painting, sheetrock walls, framing, the everything involved in an office space. So that's what he didn't do any residential. That's what he specialized in, and had gotten into the niche where he did a lot of medical offices. So there's a large, one of the larger hospitals complexes here, which is a division of ACA, Healthcare Corporation of America, I think that stands for, was probably his biggest client. But he'd had a lot of doctors that he'd done work for over the years and a big clientele. So anyway, so we worked out a deal where I purchased the company. He stayed on for almost a year, and so my engineering degree, since I didn't have commercial experience, kind of picked up that slack. Mm-hmm. And just being involved in watching him and seeing what he did, learning from his superintendent, and who was fabulous. He's still with the company today, and so that started that process. And it really, it's the thing that I found is that if you're looking to do provide a service and be honest and have integrity, that's probably the biggest key to being successful in doing that work. So having been in when I was roofing, at one point we were doing a new apartment complexes. So I've been around a lot of new construction, just construction in general, and I always pay attention to what all the different trades would do, because I'm just a curious kind of guy. And so there wasn't very much that was really new to me, and so it was really a fairly easy transition.
Now, with it currently, who are you looking to get in front of and help serve when it comes to those construction needs? Are you doing residential, or are you doing commercial with the medical? Tell us a little bit about what your ideal client looks like right now.
Yeah, so we in 2019, my daughter that has a mechanical engineering degree, I'd been recruiting her for a couple of years and she was very successful, very sharp, and ended up traveling for different companies all over the world, and got tired of that and wanted to start having kids and raising a family. So she came on board in October of 2019, and because of COVID, construction really slowed down, and she was remodeling her house and said, I'm going to put a sign in the yard. And she was actually putting a second story and an addition on. And she put a sign in the yard because of COVID, everybody was working from home. And so here in Austin, it's a good market. People have a lot of equity in their houses because the prices just keep going up. People moving into town, it just, really exploding price-wise and value-wise. They had money to borrow. We got $10 million of business, residential business, off that yard sign.
Oh
and so we said, well, I guess we're going to have a residential division. And so she has run that and still runs it today. And but as far as our clientele goes, we like the doctor work, but we do any type of tenant finish out. Like I say, it might be in a brand new shell building that hasn't been occupied, or it might be in an existing building, and where somebody's moving in or expanding. We just finished a doctor's office that went from 6,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet while they occupied it. And so, we had to do it in phases, and it's so medical community, but any type of business that's in an office, those are on the commercial side, the people that we're providing services for. And on the residential side, people hear about us. We don't really do any. We got a website, but we don't haven't had to advertise. We rely on word of mouth, and we have relationships with architects and engineers, and they'll feed us business also.
Now, I know you do all of it. Have you found one segment of the construction that you like more than the others? Did you lean back on roofs, or have you fell in love with The flooring or the cabinets, have you found one that you like to do a little bit better than the others now?
Yeah, so for the most part, most of the jobs we have all those trades involved in it. So we're not doing smaller, like on the residential, we won't do just a kitchen remodel.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a room addition, or maybe it's a scrape where they take the building down to the house down to the ground and build it up from scratch. And so, uh, so as far as all the trades, I like them all.
Okay.
I'm a, I'm, I'm studying everything and trying to, figure out and for me personally, the thing that that I really excel at is problem solving and running into situations that don't have standard answers, thinking outside the box. So one of the jobs early on we had with the hospital, um, they had they lost their orthopedic group to one of the other hospitals. So they recruited an orthopedic group from one of the other hospitals. And so one of the buildings that we were working in for, a medical office building, in October, they said, listen, we got to have these, we've promised these doctors, X million dollars worth of business in the first year. And it was a group of orthopedic doctors, spine doctors, actually. And they said, they didn't have the plans finished. And a job like of this size would normally take about 6 months. And it's October, and they said, you got to be finished at the first of the year. We know you can't do it, but, you know, that's what we got to have. I said, we'll do the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, we didn't have a full set of plans until the middle of November, but we'd already gutted the space, and we're laying things out. And the architects would come in and say, wait, we got to change this room here and change this stuff up. And as we got down to the end, because we had a good reputation with inspectors, we ended up getting our certificate of occupancy on December 29, even though we really weren't finished.
Mm-hmm.
Because of our track record, the inspectors knew that, hey, if there was an issue, you'll fix it. So they'd come in and do their inspection and say, okay, your emergency light isn't, didn't get charged up. You got to get that fixed. And so we said, do it and send them a picture. And so, we turned that thing over in like 6 weeks time, by, just ramping it up and with subcontractors that are, it had a good stable of subcontractors from the previous owner. And those guys would do anything you ask them. And we still work with most of them today, 15 years later.
Awesome. Now, I know you guys have a great reputation, a nice foothold there in Austin. As we talk about the future of the Kid Group, are you going to stay in that area? Or are you looking to expand? Tell us a little bit about your geographical area.
Yeah, we work primarily in the Austin and metropolitan area, the suburbs, around it. The size we're at, we'll grow. We're just kind of feeling our way along here. The residential has really kind of kicked in pretty strongly, so my experience when I had the roofing company was that growth is good, but you don't want to grow too fast that you really can't control it. And so a slow, steady growth seems to me the best way to keep your reputation and not get stretched too thin. And with the residential division, none of our commercial guys will do residential work. It's kind of a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started that division, I told my daughters, listen, when I started the roofing company and went from being a one-man thing to hiring crews, I had to go through 4 or 5 crews to find a good crew that's going to show up, do good work, and not cause you trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And the good, when you're starting out in business, those crews are the good ones are all working. It's hard to find them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to you just got to keep. They say you got to kiss a few frogs to find a prince. And so, when you're doing a complete residential, well, roofing, it was just shingle crews, that's all it was, that I was having to go through. Well, in the residential, there's like 13 different trades you're dealing with. That's a lot of frogs you're kissing,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was difficult. like the third year into it, we lost money on the residential side uh, because of poor subs. And we can't walk away from a job. We got to make it right. And so there was a year there that we lost some money.
Mm-hmm.
But last year we had our best year ever, and this year looking like it's going to increase. And so it's been a slow growth, and we've got a pretty good stable of residential subcontractors, and got some architects that like us. And my daughter does a great job. She's always on top of it, and which is on the residential side seems to be kind of there's a dearth of contractors that show up, respond, do good work, are going to treat you right, and so that's pretty much how we work it. But I don't have any specialty that I lean to, other than problem solving. If you got a problem, okay, call me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and tackle it.
Thank you so much for sharing about the business and how you're helping people out there. Also, thank you so much for sharing about your journey of how you got there. And I'm confident over that journey, you have acquired and nurtured a bunch of best practices or business skills that have kept you successful over this entire time. Do you mind sharing with the audience a couple of those best practices? Maybe they can add that to their mix.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Responding to your clients uh, in a timely manner, and even if it's an issue or a problem, is probably key. I mean, you're going to have to deal with it sooner or later anyway. So, if I've got, some issue that happened, and, got somebody calling up and wants to chew me out because something happened didn't the way they expected, it's kind of like, well, okay, well, let's go, got to go take my medicine, and not dodging responsibility is probably a big factor. Another one is when there is an issue, I look at it from the standpoint of I'm the professional, and if I were my client, whether it's a homeowner or a business owner or an architect, not so much architects because they are professionals, but particularly with the owners, they're not the professionals, and what they want me to do, is it reasonable? Going into this, did they have a reasonable expectation that this wouldn't be an issue, or wouldn't be a problem, or something else they got to deal with outside of the work we're doing? And if I unless I think they're trying to take advantage of me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the professional. I probably should have called that out and said something to you. I'll take care of it. And when you look at business that way, and those are the experiences that people have, they tell their friends, and hey, these guys, they took good care of us. They did good work, and any issues we had, they took care of them. And so we got one residential job. We put completely did their whole house. They've got one of these fancy faucets that you touch it and it turns off and on. And I mean, it's a, $850 faucet. Well, things stopped working. So we went out there, we swapped it out. Well, then it wasn't working again. Well, it wasn't anything to do with the application or the installation of it. It was a bad faucet. We put in 3 faucets for those people
Mm-hmm.
because, hey, they expect to have a faucet that's going to work. And, of course, the manufacturer's supplying them, but we still, I got to pay for the labor to, go out there and have the guys take them out and put it back in because
Right.
it's not their fault. So
Mm-hmm.
those are dealing with issues, as they come up, and doing what's right, and responding promptly is probably some of the biggest keys there are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very important for the audience to listen to make sure to, get those problem solves and just simply to do what's right. So thank you so much for sharing that message. And I know we've talked a lot about the journey and the business and definitely those business skills. Now I want to turn the page just a little bit and talk about yourself. So let's just say that the business is continuing to grow. The residential aspect is now at $100 million. Your commercial part is well over $1 billion, and time and money is no issue at all. What is it that you would do with your time?
Well, I'm getting to the age where I want to do some other things. Not really looking to retire, but because of my background and the things that are important to me. Um, I'd like to. I've been on a number over the years on a number of missions trips. Um, uh, been to Uganda twice. The pastor friend that I told you about is my best friend. His degree was landscape architecture, and they built a hospital. Uganda standards, it was a hospital. It's in a very poor rural area. Here it would be a clinic almost, but they do have two operating rooms. Anyway, the construction over there was poor. They had settlement problems, so I went over there with him on a mission trip to figure out, okay, what do we got to do to fix, get this high. One part of the hospital sank 5 inches in a year, and so it's kind of, yeah, we're going to have to try and get this thing jacked up and stabilized and whatnot. And then went back a second time to help them with their business plan. Um, and so I'd like to do some more missions work. Um, over the years, been to Romania twice and Hungary once on church planting missions where we're out just knocking on doors, talking to people about God and trying to get them connected, and that's pretty fulfilling. So that's one thing I like to do. Like to travel just with my wife, and we've been over to Europe a time or two, and getting ready to go to Central America here in a week, and but take a little bit of time to do that. And then on my bucket list, one of the things I want to do is patent something.
Okay.
Um, the I have a number of ideas that I think are patentable, and so I'd like to be able to spend a little bit of time to develop those. And one of my son-in-laws is an orthopedic surgeon, and he has a patent for a bone plate. And so these manufacturers of uh, you know components will call him up occasionally and say, "Hey, can you improve this?" And so he and I worked on something together, and we didn't get that patented, but that is pretty intriguing to me. Is coming up with solutions to problems that are kind of out of the box.
Yeah, being a problem solving, having the engineering degree, and then being in the construction industry, I'm sure you'll find a way to make something more efficient so you'll move closer to your patent. I just know you'll get that done. Now, if the people that are watching today have questions about your journey, your business, or just want to talk with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, David?
Well, our website is www.kiddgrp. It's Kid Group. We couldn't buy a vowel for group .com. So you can go there, send us an email. My email is david.kidd@kidgrp.com. You can contact me that way, or call the business phone 512-447-6700, and we'll be glad to see if we can be and if we're not a good fit for you, we'll try and hook you up with somebody that can take care of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today. And for all of our guests, we truly do appreciate you guys coming on and sharing. And we always like to honor you by giving you the last word. So if you don't mind, please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
Hey, be a man of integrity or a woman of integrity, and do what you say you're going to do, and do it with excellence, and things will work out for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.